So we have about 10,000 members in Canadian manufacturers and exporters. Very large network, not only of manufacturing companies, but also of engineering companies, technology companies, and a lot of services companies that provide services to the sector. 2/3 of them are small companies, companies with fewer than 50 employees. So their major focus is, where do I find customers? How do I grow my business? And how do I differentiate myself from the competition? Because frankly, today, products can be easily commoditized, production processes can be easily commoditized, and so they have to find some form of differentiation. Larger companies are focused more on, how do I secure product mandates here in Canada? But they've got to show that they can do something that nobody else in the world can if we're going to get the investments or the product mandates here in the country. Mid-sized companies are expanding. They're focusing more on management. How do I grow my business? How do I grow my business internationally? How do I position myself and my product lines in the market? But it's all about differentiation. The only way I can differentiate myself is through service, or better design, better engineering, the inclusion of better technology, the inclusion of new apps and new software in my products or in the technologies that I'm producing. And I think everybody's struggling with that because, it's easy to make strategic choices when you've got lots of customers. For the last 15 years, manufacturing in Canada and around the world has been really going through some tremendous challenges. So it's very difficult to be making strategic choices in that setting. When we survey our companies, we get about 3,000 responses back. One of the questions we ask is, are you growing? Are you growing in terms of sales or exports, profit, employment? And then, are you investing in new products, in new technologies, in new markets, in skills training? So we want to identify those companies that are growing on purpose, not just because there's some great opportunity out there. What the biggest differentiator is the leadership and the strategic decision making and the business planning, because the world is not the same today as it was even last year. So one of the biggest liabilities of being a manufacturer in Canada is that we don't have a very big market. We've been very lucky over the last 10 years or so that we've had such growth in the resource sector and the energy sector, and that has really created an awful lot of work for manufacturers across the country, and it's offset the fact that our export markets went in the tank during recession. We don't have one marketplace, we've got a series of markets across the country, and the only way that you can grow your company, your business in a very, very fragmented, very large market space is through exporting. We have, on the whole, smaller production facilities, so we don't have the big advantages of productivity gains that you can make simply by huge economies of scale. We're a high-cost jurisdiction, and it's not just taxes and regulatory costs and labor costs. It's expensive to move products across Canada, and it's expensive to find people today in Canada. And so we can't compete on cost alone. We have an area here with some of the best assets in the world for manufacturing. Better than many places in the United States or Japan or Europe or Germany, where we think of centers of excellence in manufacturing. We've just concluded an inventory in Southern Ontario of all of the manufacturing assets, the universities doing research in support of advanced manufacturing technology, the colleges and their technical training and some of the work they're doing with 3D printing and advanced manufacturing. And it's hard to beat this area for the assets that we have here. It's hard to beat a region that is compact, that has so much strength in terms of innovation and universities and colleges. Also the diversity of manufacturing, the high quality labor force that we have, and those are our strengths. Canada can compete with everybody else in the world, and in many cases do it much better. But we can't do it the way we've done it before. At the end of the day, governments don't create jobs, In fact, businesses don't create jobs, customers create jobs. If you don't have customers buying your product, you're probably not going to be successful. The issue is, what can manufacturers do, or what can any business do, to develop a better customer base? There are only two ways of doing that: growing with the economy, growing with customer demand, or trying to carve out a niche and grow market share within an economy that isn't growing very rapidly. They have to be very good at developing that customer solution, that high value proposition, that be very good at cutting their costs, being lean, being very flexible, being able to manage risk really, really well. But then the role of government is, I think, more to shape the business environment in which companies operate. There are a lot of mandated overhead costs that companies bear, and it's not just taxes. In fact, I think Canada has some pretty good tax rates for manufacturing right now. We've got a low corporate tax rates, we've got zero tax rates on inputs into manufacturing or tariffs into manufacturing. We have an accelerated capital cost allowance that's been very important for a number of our members. We have investment tax credits. What we don't do a very good job, though, is controlling the mandatory overheads in terms of regulatory compliance costs. We have a lot of unnecessary procedures, a lot of unnecessary compliance requirements that all impose costs, and many times hidden costs, on companies. And that's something we really have to work on. Governments have a role in making sure that we have reliable, cost-competitive infrastructure. In some parts of this country, in Ontario especially, our energy costs are not competitive. Infrastructure, you know, it's not just moving product from one side of Toronto to the other, or one side of Vancouver to the other, it's moving people. One of the biggest problems that many companies face is they can't find the skilled workers they need. People don't want to stay in traffic for 2 hours every day in a commute. And so our infrastructure needs to be improved in a way that it becomes more efficient to move product, to move people. There's a role for government in reducing the risk that companies face in making investments in new technology, new product development, skills training, or even entry into new markets. These are high-risk activities. And everybody around the world, many other governments, particularly in the United States, are offering tremendous investment incentives. Part of it is financial, but a very large part, especially for small companies, is how can we help small companies manage the adoption of new technologies more effectively. And there, I think governments have a role to play just simply in helping companies connect the dots. We've got some of the best IT and software developers in the world in Canada and in southern Ontario, around the London, Waterloo region. But surely we can bring those technical companies and the technologies and the engineers that are working on them together with existing businesses, i.e. manufacturers. I see engineers that know how to get a really good product out the door really, really well, whether it's software or a manufactured product. They're not so good in figuring out where their customers are, how customers could actually use those products or applications. On the other hand, in manufacturing, I see an awful lot of companies with problems, process problems, product definition problems that could be solved if they had software expertise, if they had the applications. And often these are two ships passing in the night. That's a big gap in our innovation system that we need to close, and it's a large part of it can be closed very easily by bringing universities, colleges, and industry together with some of the technology startups, and let's see what happens.